Have you ever wondered when humans first started smoking? The answer is much more surprising than most people think, and it begins long before cigarettes ever existed. Long before tobacco existed in human culture, ancient people gathered around campfires every day. They breathed smoke simply because fire was part of daily life. Fire gave ancient humans warmth, light, protection from many predators, and a safe place where families could gather after sunset. But breathing smoke from a fire is not the same as smoking. Scientists make an important distinction between these two very different activities. Archaeologists believe humans controlled fire hundreds of thousands of years ago. However, intentional tobacco smoking appeared much later in history. Some ancient cultures burned fragrant plants and herbs during ceremonies. These practices were often connected with rituals, traditions, or spiritual beliefs. These ceremonies were very different from modern smoking. Their purpose often involved tradition, symbolism, or cultural practices rather than everyday recreation. The tobacco plant originally grew in the Americas. People in those regions developed ways of using it thousands of years before European contact. Archaeological discoveries suggest tobacco was being used by some indigenous peoples in the Americas thousands of years ago, long before modern history began. Researchers continue studying exactly when tobacco use began. New discoveries sometimes improve our understanding of ancient cultures and their traditions. Early smoking methods looked very different from today's cigarettes. Different cultures created their own tools and traditions over many generations. Ancient tools were often made from stone, clay, wood, or other natural materials found in the surrounding environment. Many ancient traditions were passed from one generation to the next through storytelling, observation, and shared community experiences. Today, archaeologists use scientific methods to study ancient artifacts and learn how people lived thousands of years ago. Every discovery helps researchers build a clearer picture of human history. Even small clues can completely change what we know about the past. The story of smoking did not begin with cigarettes. It began with fire, ancient traditions, and thousands of years of human curiosity and culture. Long before tobacco spread around the world, several indigenous cultures in the Americas had already discovered the plant and developed their own traditional ways of using it. Archaeologists have found traces of nicotine on ancient artifacts, suggesting that tobacco was being used thousands of years ago in some communities. Some of the earliest evidence comes from ancient pipes discovered by archaeologists. These findings help researchers understand how people lived and practiced their traditions. Researchers believe tobacco was often connected to ceremonies, important gatherings, and spiritual traditions rather than everyday casual use. Different communities had different customs. There was never just one way of using tobacco across the ancient Americas. Ancient smoking tools were carefully made from materials like stone, clay, wood, or carved bone, depending on local resources. Creating these tools required skill and patience. Many were beautifully crafted and reflected the traditions of the people who made them. Archaeologists continue discovering new sites every year. Each discovery adds another piece to the story of ancient human life. After Europeans reached the Americas in the late 15th century, tobacco gradually spread to many other parts of the world through trade and exploration. Within a relatively short period, tobacco became known across Europe, Asia, Africa, and many other regions through expanding trade networks. As tobacco spread, different cultures created their own customs, traditions, and methods of using it based on local beliefs and practices. Historians carefully compare written records with archaeological discoveries to understand how tobacco use changed over time. Science continues improving our understanding of history. New technologies help researchers examine ancient objects without damaging them. Every new discovery reminds us that history is always growing. Archaeology constantly helps us better understand the lives of ancient people. Understanding ancient traditions helps us appreciate the diversity of human cultures across thousands of years of history. The story of ancient smoking is really a story about human culture, discovery, and changing traditions over thousands of years. After tobacco spread beyond the Americas, many societies adopted it in different ways. Customs varied greatly depending on culture, location, and historical period. Some communities used tobacco mainly in ceremonies, while others gradually incorporated it into everyday life. Traditions differed from place to place. Historians remind us that ancient practices should always be understood within their original cultural and historical context. Movies sometimes make it seem like every ancient person smoked. Archaeological evidence tells a much more detailed and accurate story. Researchers depend on artifacts, plant remains, residue analysis, and excavation sites instead of guesses or legends to understand the past. Every excavation can reveal new clues. Even tiny discoveries may completely change what archaeologists know about ancient civilizations. Scientific technology now helps experts identify tiny traces left behind on ancient objects without damaging these valuable historical discoveries. Thanks to these methods, historians can better understand how ancient traditions developed and changed over thousands of years. History is rarely simple. New discoveries often improve or even change our understanding of ancient human life. Learning about ancient cultures helps us appreciate the incredible diversity of human history across different continents and civilizations. The story of tobacco is not just about one plant. It is also about exploration, culture, trade, and changing traditions through history. Studying the past reminds us that human cultures constantly adapt, share ideas, and create new traditions over time. Archaeology continues uncovering fascinating evidence that helps answer questions people have asked for generations. The next time you hear an ancient history story, remember that real evidence is often more fascinating than myths or legends. Human history is still being discovered every year. Each excavation teaches us something new about our shared past. So, when did ancient humans start smoking? The evidence points to ancient tobacco traditions in the Americas thousands of years ago, while the global spread happened much later. If you enjoyed this journey into history, like, subscribe, and tell us which ancient mystery we should explore next.